Hey everybody, this is Will. In this video, we're going to be talking about some advanced tips and tricks for building a live set in Ableton Live. Now, leading up to this video, we've walked through a three-part series that introduces you to the three-part framework for using tracks. And so in our first video, we talk about creating a template and walking you through our free tracks template. The second video is we apply that tracks template to formatting a song and walk through how to do that. And then in our third video, the video right before this one, we actually build an Ableton Live set of multiple songs. So if you've never done that, I would encourage you to walk through those three videos. I've linked them in the description of this video. What I want to talk about particularly in this video though, is starting to get us into some more advanced concepts. Now, there's even more advanced places we can go. And you don't have to apply all of these tips and tricks to what you're doing, but all three of the things I'm going to show you in this video, because we don't have enough time for me to show you every single tip and trick that I know how to do with this thing, all relates to using what I call a virtual MIDI driver or a virtual MIDI bus. And what this essentially allows us to do is, instead of using a MIDI controller like this to say press play to then play in Ableton Live, we want to use a MIDI clip within Live that is going to be mapped to some feature in Live to perform that action. Okay, that's essentially what we're doing, is we're taking a MIDI controller, we're embedding it in Ableton Live by using a MIDI clip, and we're sending that out to this virtual MIDI bus, bringing it back into Ableton Live to then control Ableton Live. Now, if you're on a Mac, the best solution to do this with is the IAC driver. It's included for free. It's rock solid. It's stable. It's interesting. I'm gonna break my flow here for a second. Recently, I read some comments on another YouTube video that I saw someone kind of talking about. It was a similar topic, but not completely related. And then read comments on a forum where people were saying, oh, I want to get away from the IAC driver. But neither of them had a necessarily reason why. Like, they felt like there was something wrong with it. I will say, I have used the IAC driver that's built into my Mac for, gosh, I don't know, at least 10 years. I've never once had a problem with it that was caused by the actual IAC driver. I have had problems with it because I mapped it to multiple things, or I did something stupid, or I forgot to plug in my computer one time and the power died. But that had nothing to do with the IAC driver. So if you are having issues with that, it's likely not that, okay? So it's likely something else going on. But on Mac, my favorite solution is the IAC driver. We'll talk about how to set that up and enable that in a moment. I have so much content, so many videos on using the IAC driver on Mac with Ableton. I'll link them in the description of this video. If you're on a PC, LoopBe is a great solution. I actually, believe it or not, have a video showing you how to set that up on a PC. Somehow I found a PC and I sorted my way through the land of Windows to try to create this tutorial for your people, because I'm a man of the people. I'm here to serve. So what we're going to be talking about today is every tip and trick I show you is going to be related to the virtual MIDI driver. I'm a one-trick pony. If you're bored and you go, I've seen all this, skip this video, whatever, catch me on the next one. But let's talk through how to set this up, and I'll show you the things we're able to do. There's some great plugins, Macs or Live plugins and devices that do cool things. But the reason I particularly like this solution is it's free. It's included on your Mac. If you're using a Mac, if you're using a PC, LoopBe is free. You can install it super easy. So let's get into it. So I've got my set here. Again, if you're not sure how I built this, understand why I did things the way I did, check out the previous video where I talk about building an Ableton Live set with multiple songs. I've linked it in the description of this video. I will keep saying that till I'm red in the face, because it's true. I've linked a lot of stuff in the description of this video, so check that out. Here's my live set though. I want to do some cool things with this, some more advanced things that are very easy to do. So what I'm going to do first is set up my virtual MIDI bus. Again, on a Mac, it's the IAC driver, which is included. If you're on a PC, check the link in the description. I told you I was going to keep saying it. Check the link in the description of this video to see how to set up LoopBe. I've also got a link to that for PC. Okay, so here on Mac, here's what we're going to do. We're going to go to Spotlight. If you don't know how to go to Spotlight, then spend a little more time on your Mac learning different features. But the way I get there is Command and Spacebar. And I'm going to type Audio MIDI. Okay, so I'm going to go to Audio MIDI Setup, which is this top item here. I'm going to press Enter. I want to go up to Window in the menu bar. So at the top of my screen in the menu bar, I'm going to go to Window, and then I'm going to go to Show MIDI Studio. Okay. Now this might look a little different depending on what version of Mac you're on. I am currently using, I don't even remember, I'm using Mac OS Big Sur, so 11.1. So this may look a little different for you than what it looks like for me, but it's the same process to get there, okay? Same exact process. So we're in the MIDI studio now. I want to go to IAC Driver. Now, what you're likely going to see is what I see here. You may see this where everything's super tiny. You may even see, I think there's a list view somewhere. You may even see something like this. However it's displayed, IAC Driver is where we're going, okay? That stands for Inter-Application Connectivity Driver, if I remember correctly. So I'm going to double click this, and we're going to go into this, and you could see there's a couple different things we can do. We can add multiple buses. I would just stick to one bus for now. I've got 3 buses. The best way to think about this is if you're using Ableton Live and you're going to send MIDI to Ableton Live, you're going to use the IAC Driver for Ableton Live. Then you want to send MIDI to Resolume on the same computer. And I should mention, I'll link to another video that I've got where I compare the IAC Driver to RTP MIDI. Don't use the IAC Driver to send MIDI across the network. That's not what it does. But if I'm going to send MIDI to multiple programs on the same computer, I then think it's best to create multiple buses. And you can click the plus icon here to add an additional port if you want to. I just leave it to 1. Actually, and I'm just going to delete these other ones just to make it look similar to what you see. Now, you could give the device a name. I'm just going to leave it set to IAC Driver, and then click the Devices Online button to turn that online, and then hit Apply. Again, this is how we set this up on Mac. If you're on a PC, follow the link in the description to get to the setup video for LoopBe 1. Now, with that set up, let's go into Ableton Live. These settings are super important. When I first started using this, in fact, I got the settings incorrect, and I had some issues. So actually, I guess I could say I have had issues with the IAC Driver, but again, it's not the IAC Driver's fault. It was a lack of understanding on my end on the preferences window in Ableton. So let's go into Ableton. I'm going to do Command, I'm going to go to Preferences, and then Link Tempo MIDI. Now we're looking for our IAC Driver, and let's start first with the input, okay? So the input here, IAC Driver bus 1, we want to make sure that remote is enabled. I would highly encourage you only enable remote. And what that means is we want to be able to remotely control live from that MIDI input. So the same way that I've got my MIDI controller here, if I wanted to remotely control live using this MIDI controller, I would find it in the preferences and I would enable remote because I want it to remotely control Ableton Live. Hopefully that makes sense. So for this, the input is our IAC Driver bus 1. We found it. We've enabled remote. Again, if you're on a PC, I think you get this. People that watch this channel tend to be pretty intelligent, but you're not going to see IAC Driver. You'll see LoopBe 1 or whatever you named that. If you renamed your IAC Driver instead of bus 1, you'll, to whatever, stop track or whatever you named it, you'll see that there. Okay. I think you guys get that, but I just want to stress it to make sure. Now let's go to the output side here. It's super important. Actually, you could see this, I don't think I would have any issues with this because I was obviously using this for a previous video, but I want to make sure on the output side of this, I'm going to disable remote. I'm going to disable sync. I want to make sure that just track is enabled. Essentially what that means is I just want to be able to send MIDI out of Ableton Live's tracks to the IAC Driver. Okay. If I was a good enough artist, I would take this here pin and I would draw a diagram to show you what this looks like, but I'm not, so I'm not going to. I'm going to spare you from that. I made the mistake of doing that for a course on the site one time, and someone's feedback was, you need some new pictures. And I agreed and said, yes, I agree with you. So I'm not going to draw it, but imagine this. We're in Ableton Live. We're going to create a MIDI clip. That MIDI is going to go out to the IAC Driver. Think of the IAC Driver as like a cloud. It's like a cloud service like Dropbox in a way. It's not really. Hopefully that doesn't confuse you. But it goes to this invisible thing on our computer that is a virtual kind of MIDI input device. And then we're going to route MIDI out of that virtual device back into Ableton Live to control live. So you take a MIDI clip, map it to stop. It goes up here, comes back in Ableton Live, it stops. I think we get that, right? It's the same, just think about it, same thing as this. Whenever there's something, a new concept that seems weird or difficult, I always think about how does that parallel to a physical thing, or how does that parallel to something similar? It's a MIDI controller that just happens to be in Ableton Live, okay? So let's close our preferences now and let's get to this. The first thing I want to do is I want to make it to where I get to the end of this song. Let's play the end of the song real quick. I'm going to make sure my volume is pretty low. I think it is. We'll keep an eye on it. Okay. Little rock and roll. Kids in their darn rock and roll. It's got some power chords happening there. That's why I said that. And song 2, there's our click starting. Now, one of my favorite things about Arrange Review is just what happened. I don't have to do all this work in math to say after 4 measures, jump to the next scene. That does not make a lot of sense to me when I'm in a somewhat linear performance. I like using arrangement view because it's hands off. I go from song 1 to song 2. You saw that here. I go from song 1, I jump into song 2. I'm a huge fan of arrangement view for live performance for that particular reason. But sometimes you want to stop at the end of song 1 before you get to song 2. So what most people do is they press their song, get their power chords, they press spacebar, or they click stop up here. And that's how they stop Live's arrangement. There's nothing wrong with that, but I want to try to make this so that it's as hands off as possible. I want to do the work beforehand as much as possible so that when I'm in the moment, I could focus on the music. I can focus on performing. I don't want to look like I'm checking my email on stage. I don't want to have to reach over, press spacebar to stop it. If I know I'm going to stop there, then why can't I just decide to stop? Okay. So you look in Ableton Live, how do we make that happen? We're going to use the virtual MIDI bus that we set up, our IAC driver. We're going to create a MIDI clip. I think you already know where we're going here. That's essentially going to equal stop, so that whenever we press stop, whenever we hit that MIDI clip, that Live is going to stop. Okay. Let's show you how easy this is to do. So I'm going to go ahead and create a MIDI clip here. I'm going to do Command Shift T to create a MIDI track. I'm going to rename this track Stop. Okay. Now I'm going to create a MIDI clip. So I'm going to go to the end of my song here. We'll just select some space. We'll do Command Shift M to create our clip. I'm going to rename this Stop. Now, no offense to people that love the color blue, particularly teal blue. I mean, that's kind of a Florida color. I lived in Florida for a few years. No offense to you guys, but this does not say stop to me. So I'm pretty stupid. I need things to be really simple. So I'm going to right click on this. I'm going to make this red. Red to me feels like stop. I see stop and I know I'm stopping. Okay. It's a small thing, but it helps. Just bear with me, work with me here for a second. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a MIDI note on my stop clip. Now, one thing I want to check here, and I'm getting a little ahead of myself. I do have a separate video that I did actually a couple weeks ago from one of our troubleshooting series where I talk about how to create a stop clip that also works with a MIDI controller. I'm going to assume at this point, because you watched our previous 3 videos, and as you guessed, I've linked to that video in the description of this as well too. I'm going to assume, because you followed along in our process, that you have a template, much like I do here, that if you were to go and hit Command M and go look at your template, you would see that you have a stop. You've got some sort of MIDI clip, some sort of MIDI assignment that you've already made to stop. Okay. If you don't, then just pick something and go for it. If you're going to use a MIDI controller with this, you need your clip to match your MIDI controller. I'll link to the video below. I'm talking too long anyway. People are going to comment and be mad and angry, as most YouTube comments are. So I'm going to get to it. If you're confused about what I'm talking about, you know what I'm going to say. Check the link in the description of this video. So here's what I'm going to do. My stop is already mapped. Okay. And I'm going to make a note here because I have terrible memory. We're at channel 16. And you can see right here, I clicked on stop. You see, it says channel 16. This is super important. Most people miss this. And we're on note D1. Okay. Channel 16, note D1. Press Command M to get out of that. Let's double click to go on our stop clip here. Now we need to find note D1. So there's D, that's D2. D1, which is also the best Mighty Ducks movie. And I'm going to double click to create that MIDI clip. Now this is a Will Doggett preference. I want my clip to be, and I kind of cheated here. Typically I want my clip just to be 1 measure, right? So I made it 2 measures there. I'm going to make it 1 measure, and I want this note to run the entire length of the clip. That's just so that when I look up here, I see the note fills the clip. There's like a weird, again, I'm not very smart. There's like a weird mental thing that happens if I see a clip that doesn't have the full note. So do whatever you want to, but talk amongst yourselves. But you do you, however you want to, live your own truth. But I'm going to make this D1. Okay. Next thing I need to do is I need to go here to MIDI 2. And I'm going to set this to IAC Driver. Now, why am I doing that? Remember, we're going to take MIDI from our MIDI clip. It's going to go to the IAC Driver. That's going to then come back into Ableton Live, right? So that stop clip can essentially be like our MIDI controller, okay? Now, this is going to work automatically for me, and it's going to work now. And the reason it's going to work is that mapping has already been made to my stop clip. Most likely, though, if you're watching this, because again, look, I've already got a MIDI mapping, no, channel 16, note D1. Most likely you don't have a MIDI clip there. So I'm going to come back and show you how to map it in just a second, but let's just try it. Got our stop clip in. Let's hear our power chord and let's see what happens. Okay, we went right past it. That was a great demo, Will. And of course, it did not work. Now, this is good. I like when things go wrong because it gives me an example to look super wise and say, no, I meant to do that. And let's discover what's going wrong. I know what happened here, but let's see if you guys can figure out what's going wrong. And actually, I'm going to do a classic YouTuber trick here. I'm going to show you this. I want you to comment if you know exactly what's going wrong. So I want you to look at the IAC driver here and tell me if you could tell me, why did that not work the first time when I did this? Okay, I'll give you a second. Comment below. The reason is that note is mapped to, yes, D1, we got that correct, but look at the MIDI channel that note is mapped to. In fact, unfortunately, I think I've done this a couple times on a monthly call where I missed this as well too. Channel 16. Okay, remember when I even walked through this and said MIDI channel is important, and I still forgot it. I haven't finished my coffee yet. I'm like halfway through my coffee for the day, so we'll blame that, right? So let's fix this, and then you'll see how well this works, right? We're living in the moment here. You know, we're chill, only chill vibes, only here in this office. So let's go back and let's try this again. So let's listen to our power chord to end this, wait for our stop clip to hit, and then I'll show you how to map your clip. Boom. There we go. Boom, roasted. It stopped. So you look at Live Transport, you'll see we stopped right where that clip is. The reason it stopped is that clip is the exact same note and MIDI channel. Kids, remember that, as what's mapped to our stop clip. But you're watching this and going, but Will, I haven't mapped anything yet. How do I do that? So let me show you how to do that. Let's pretend you have nothing mapped to stop yet. So you're not using a MIDI controller with it. If you are using a MIDI controller, go ahead and map your MIDI controller and then figure out what note that is to match your MIDI controller. Watch the tutorial below. I'm skipping a lot of stuff. Just watch the tutorial below. Trust me on this. Let's say we need to map it though. So I'm going to go to stop and I need to click stop. And I need to start my transport before I get to my MIDI clip. Okay. So I'm going to go here. I'm going to click stop and wait for it. Boom, it hits. Okay. And I'm going to get out of MIDI map mode and press spacebar to stop. Now, one thing I do want to mention, occasionally I'll look back on older videos where I've taught this and someone says, oh yeah, I realized the trick is you got to click stop right before the note hits. That's not true. Like, cause you saw what I did there. I actually didn't click stop right when it hit. I just went before the clip. Okay. I click stop, I'm waiting, and then boom, it hits, okay? So now, let's press spacebar, let's try it again. Boom, and we stop, okay? So that's how we can create a stop clip. That's our first kind of trick that we're gonna do with the IAC driver. And you may be going, wow, well, you said advanced tips and tricks, and you're showing me how to stop Ableton. You've really outdone yourself with this video. And to that, it's a yes, maybe. But I want you to imagine how nice this would be on stage to be able to get to the end of a song, stop, and not have to use the mental capacity to remember to stop, and just be confident and know that your song's going to stop. Now, this is great. This is a great solution because, again, I get to the end here, got crazy power chord, not so crazy power chord, but a power chord nonetheless. And we stop. Now we're ready for song 2. Now, in order for me to get to song 2, I've got to use my MIDI controller or use my keys on my keyboard, which is what I'm going to do in this case. I'm going to press 2, press play, and I'm ready to go. But that's an extra step than I care to take. I'm a pretty lazy guy. You know, I'm like lazily making my way through my coffee. I'm taking my time. I'm not going to edit the video out where I made a mistake because I'm a man of the people, right? I'm a simple man. And so I don't want to do the hard work. I don't want to stop and then have to think, okay, yeah, we stopped. Now let me press 2, let me press spacebar to go. I want to do this. I want to stop and I want live to automatically jump to song 2. Then I want to keep going. Okay. Does that make sense to you? I just want to basically make it to where song 1 plays, it stops, the artist talks, and then I press play again on my MIDI controller or spacebar on my computer, and we're on song 2. How do we do that? We're going to create what I call a pause and go to next track. It's a terribly named thing. That's what I've called it for years though, because it's actually not pausing, it's stopping and it's selecting the next track. Okay. So let me show you how I'm going to do this. Okay. We've got our stop clip. We're going to leave that. We're going to create another MIDI clip here though. I'm going to do Command Shift M and we're going to call this select next song. You could also call this like a songs track. I will show you over here at the left, and I'll link this up if you want this. If I go to templates, you could see in the, which one? Advanced track template here, I have a songs track that basically all this work is already pre-mapped for you. If you want to do this sort of things, I'll show you, there's already a stop clip, pause and go to next, repeat, spoiler alert, that's what we're talking about next, songs track. So all this already exists in the advanced arrangement view template. If you want to spend money buying it, God bless you, great. I would love it. My kids would love to be able to eat. If you don't want to spend money on it, that's perfectly fine too, because I'm going to show you how to recreate it here just now. This is a terrible way to market. Like, let me show you how to do the thing so you don't have to buy the thing. Anyway, you know the drill. So select next song. I'm going to create a MIDI clip here. Command Shift M. Okay. And I'm going to add a MIDI note. Two ways to look at this. If I do Command M, I want to see, is this locator mapped? It's not mapped right now. The next thing I'm going to think about is, am I going to use a MIDI controller like this guy to select like that particular song? And I don't mean press next a few times to get to it, but to say like, will this button be mapped to song 2? If it is, then you're going to create a MIDI clip similar to what we did with stop clip. The note, the MIDI note that's in this clip needs to be the same exact note that's mapped on this locator. Okay. I think that makes sense. Watch the video in the description below about how to use a stop clip and a MIDI control at the same time. If you don't understand that. But in my case, I don't have a MIDI note here. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to pick a MIDI note. We'll get out of Command M. We know nothing's MIDI map mode. Nothing's mapped there. Let's go all the way to the top here. We're going to choose G8. So I'm going to double click. You know the drill. I'm going to drag this to be the entire length of the song. Then I'm going to MIDI map this to locator 2. In order for it to MIDI map to locator 2, I'm going to do just what we did before, but to make sure I don't accidentally map my stop clip here and take longer, I'm going to just temporarily unmute that. And I'm going to do my best to remember to route it back at the end here. Let's press tab and we're going to do MIDI to IAC Driver. I could leave this on any channel, but because our previous mapping's on channel 16, let's be consistent here. We're going to be consistent people. So we're going to make this channel 16. Now I'm going to go to MIDI map mode. I'm going to start playback here. Go past stop clip, and then I'm going to click on song 2, and then our MIDI note hits. Okay, and we'll pause. And now if I just break this down for you, if I click on this and then show our mappings browser, you'll see MIDI channel 16 note G8 is now mapped to this song. Now, there's a couple other things I have to show you in order for this to work, but I want to stress that it's super important that you map to that particular locator. So this is mapped to song 2. So I should actually go in and name this song 2. Okay, let's make it all caps. Again, consistency is key here. We're going to name this song 2. What I see a lot of people do, this is something that people write in and go, I tried everything you did in the video and it didn't work. I had issues. It's typically because instead of mapping to an individual song, they go and map to next locator. And next locator is not a, what I call an absolute automation. It's a relative automation. And I'm not a fan of that. Things need to be absolute, much like truth. I want, like, when I hit this clip, I know I'm going to song 2. I don't want there to be a chance that I jump to song 4 because of where Live's playhead is. Okay. Hopefully that makes sense. So in this MIDI clip here, I've added G8 MIDI channel 16, and it's mapped to locator 2. Now what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna scoot this back a little. I'm going to remember to unmute my stop clip, okay, so that it's ready to go. Final thing I'm going to do here, and shout out to Jared Dyke. Jared, I know we haven't talked in a few years, but Jared was a From Studio Stage subscriber early on. And I think, if I remember, Jared, I think I learned this once you had subscribed. I used to have a method of doing this that required Bohm's MIDI translator. I come from a long line of over-engineering solutions to problems. And so Jared was like, hey, Will, have you ever thought about doing this? And naturally, being the incredibly prideful person I am, I said, well, yeah, I've thought about it, Jared, but, you know, and then I went, no, actually, I haven't thought about it. I didn't even think I could do this and realize I could do this. So shout out to Jared Dyke for coming up with this last little bit here to make this work. Jared's a smart dude. So I'm going to go to track delay, which is here in the bottom right-hand corner of live screen. We'll zoom in here so you can see this. This is the only time in the history of the world I have ever used track delay. Let me know in the comments if you've used this before, done anything with it, but it's the only time ever that I have used this. What I'm going to do is go to my select next song column here. Okay. Not stop, but only select next song. And I'm going to bump up my delay to be about, I can't remember the exact value. I think I've kind of found anything over 20 milliseconds, if I remember correctly, works. I'm going to go to 50. That's typically what I teach people, is just at least go to 50. I think anything above 20 will be pretty consistent. But I want this to be 50 milliseconds for now. So what's going to happen, I'll explain this, then I'll show you it happening. Okay. What's going to happen is we're going to play. we're going to hit this mini stop clip, and it's going to stop Live's playback immediately. But it's also hitting this clip at the same time. And if I didn't add that track delay, then it's just going to default to where it's just going to stop. It's going to follow this first clip here, which is stop, and it's going to stop. But because we added this track delay, what's going to happen is Live is going to stop, and then 50 milliseconds later, it's going to do whatever this command is. Okay. So again, shout out to Jared. I wish I could take credit for this. I always want to be someone who gives credit where credit is due. So shout out to Jared. Jared, if you happen to see this, say hey in the comments. Would love to hear from you. But that track delay is the secret to this. Now let's watch it happen. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go to my end locator here. I'm going to press play. We're going to hear our rock and roll power chord. And then if everything works right, we're going to stop and we're going to select our next song. So again, I call it pause and go to next track, but stop and go to next. Okay, here we go. All right, so we're coming up on our stop. There's our stop. And then you can see, it's kind of hard to see. Oh, that was a super zoom. I apologize. You see our playhead right there is selected on song 2. So here's the beauty of this. And this may be like, wow, Will, advanced tips and tricks, and you're showing me how to choose a song. But here's the beauty of this. You step on stage, and if you make the right decisions and the right programming decisions before you ever step on stage, the beauty of this process is you're going to just be able to press play, because I'm not thinking what song comes next. I'm not thinking, where am I going next to my song? All I'm thinking of is we're at the end of this song. I press play. It's going to play. I'm not touching the computer. I'm not touching the keyboard. It stops. It selects song 2. The artist talks. They do their thing. They connect with the audience. And then whenever I'm ready, I press spacebar, right? And I have full confidence that when I press spacebar, the decision as to what song we're going to next is already made for me. Now, here's a little bonus tip. If you made it this far, 26 minutes into the video, God bless you. 1, 2, you get a bonus tip, okay? Now, I map this to song 2, but if you use your template correctly, much like over here in our advanced arrangement view template, see how I have song 3, song 4, song 5, song 6, 7, 8, 9, whatever. I guess all the way up to 20, yeah. If I use these clips, these are all pre-mapped to locators in arrangement view. So what's really cool about this, you're probably already kind of getting at where I'm going, is if before your set starts, the artist that you're working with says, hey, after song 1, I actually want us to jump to song 3. You don't have to rebuild your live set. Your set is built. There's no reason to rebuild it. But what you can do is you can change this and say, oh, let's actually jump to song 3. I'll show you how to do that. Here's what you really should do. Is do all this work beforehand, save it in a template, or again, save yourself some time and purchase the advanced arrangement view template, which I should mention you can get for free as a subscriber. Once you sign up, you can use your credits to purchase it, which is a really, really awesome deal. But let me show you how I'm going to do this just to make this happen really quickly. I'm going to go to my song track here, this select next song track. I'm going to select the amount of space to Command M. I know that song 2 is G8, so just so I don't interfere, I'm going to do F#8, and then to be a good citizen of the world, I'm going to drag the note to be the entire length of the MIDI clip. We'll do Command M, and then we're going to play that, and then we're going to select song 3, right? And that gets mapped to locator 3, okay? I think everybody saw that. So now this is going to be kind of a stupid demo, but we're going to play it. We hit it. It's going to queue up song 3, and then we're into song 3, okay? Now here's the beauty of this. Let's rename this clip song 3. Okay. I'm going to cut this. And again, in a perfect world, I would set this up like the advanced arrangement view template, so that is going to just live in my track. Right. But for now, let's replace the song 2 clip with song 3. So again, scenario here, our set is built. Artist, before we step on stage, decides to change their mind, which, wow, whoever imagined an artist could change their mind and do something differently. They change their mind and say, hey, we're going to go from song 1 to song 3 in the set. No fear. I don't need to rebuild my set. There's some great plugins that can make that happen, but I don't need to go buy a plugin to control my set to jump around. All I do is use these pre-mapped IAC Driver clips so that we get to the end of song 1 and watch what happens here. Going to get to the end of song 1, we are going to stop. We're going to skip song 2, and we jump right to song 3. I have the confidence, because I did the work beforehand, pre-programmed work, that when I press spacebar, it's going to start on whatever song that is. So that's your kind of pro tip within the pro tips and tricks video. Okay. That's one of my favorite things to do. And again, the goal and the reason I do that work is so that I have a hands-off experience with Ableton Live, and I make the decisions before I step on stage as much as I can. That do I want to stop? Do I want to pause and go on? Or do I want to remove all those clips so that I just immediately go to the next song? Let me share one more pro tip, and then I actually have a third actual tip that I'm going to share. I guess I'm in a good mood today. I haven't finished my coffee, so I got not all the energy I should have, but I'm just in a good mood. So here's what I suggest doing. You can obviously do pause and go to next stuff, which is great, and super, super helpful and beneficial. We'll go back to song 2 just so we have that. But when I'm programming a set, just to be safe, I put a stop clip at the end of every song. So that at the absolute worst, I know that we're going to stop and it's not going to go into the next song. If I know that we are going to go to the next song, I'll just hit 0 on that to deactivate it. But it's there. So if I need it and need to bring it back, I can click and hit 0 and bring that clip back. If you really wanted to do your due diligence, if you like the pause and go to next thing, then what you could do is you could just program every song so that at the end of song 1, you have a stop clip and then song 2. So that basically by default, if nothing changes, if you don't hear from the artist you're working with that they want to change the set list, then you're going to get to the end of a song, you're going to stop and select the next song. That's very possible. And then if you end up and realize, oh, I'm not going to actually use that, then select both of those, hit 0, and that clip is deactivated, but it's there if you need that back. Okay. Just kind of pro tip. Okay. Final thing here. I've gone longer than I intended, which is the story of my life, but I want to show you my final kind of tip and trick. So, one of my favorite things I can do in Ableton Live, and let's get to this song 2. This is a song I wrote, so YouTube is not going to yell at me for using it. I have these locators here. Okay. So I have a markers track, which is telling me, the different sections. And this is super helpful because I can click on the A section here, for example, and press play. Okay. And you can hear that playing. Which is great. I like that exists and I have that A section there and I can jump around. One of my favorite things to do though is I can click on a section, press play, and let's jump ahead to the B section here. 2, 3, 4, boom. Okay. It doesn't sound much different because you can't hear the keys part to this song. Actually, let's make life a little easier here. We'll set all of these to 1 and 2. Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. This is why you actually hear the song instead of just white noise and in a drum loop. So here's A section. Let's try it again. Okay. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. And we jump to the B section. Now, obviously with that white noise thing, that's not a great transition. It doesn't work perfectly, but I have the ability. Remember we talked about in the beginning, we can build our set and arrangement view. It's very hands-off. It just flows until we want to interject into the process to say, let's repeat a section. Now that's great, but I prefer using a MIDI controller to interact remotely or using a key on my keyboard, mapping it to this function up here, which is our repeat or previous locator. Typically what I do Command K, I click on this, I press R, and that's mapped to R on my keyboard. Then I can get into a section. This is maybe a good example here. This drums in section. Let's double click to do this. And then I can press R on my keyboard, 3, 4, and it's repeating, right? Press it again. I can repeat that again. And this you could see this could be kind of helpful to even maybe a more electronic kind of vibe to almost like remix the song. I also have the previous locator button if I wanted. So I had repeat there. Let's do Command K. Let's click on that one. Let's hit F for forward. Again, pick whatever you want to. Repeat, forward, J for jump around, whatever it is. But with those two buttons, so R to repeat, F for forward. Let's click on drums here. I have a measure to make this happen because of global quantization, which is 1 bar. So I'm going to wait a measure and then 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. So I press forward 2 times, which jumped me way ahead to the A section. Let's repeat that again. I hit repeat. Let's jump back to the B section. Okay. I'm basically navigating my entire song with 2 buttons, previous locator, next locator. That's super helpful. It's super handy. But what do we do if we step on stage and there's 2 scenarios? In fact, I just did a one-on-one training yesterday with a Gil, who is from Studio Stage student, and he was saying he uses this in the band that he plays in. You know that you're going to get into a song section that's going to loop and you have no clue how long that section is going to be. Okay. So you get into maybe the B section here of this song, and I know it's just going to play, and I don't know how long the artist is going to be vamping or talking or whatever. There's no reason for me, again, pre-do the work, do some pre-work. There's no reason for me to keep doing this. Okay, press R. And again, bad transition, bad part of the song to do this, but I think you get the point. If I want to keep repeating it, there's no reason for me to press R to do that, okay? So what we're going to do instead is create what I call a repeat track, and we're going to program this to basically create a pre-looping, pre-programming loop section, which is super cool. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to close these guys up. I'm going to do a new MIDI track, so Command-Shift-T. We'll move this up so that I can see this, and we'll call this repeat. Okay. And we're going to go, let's say, again, it's not going to be a great example, a great transition, but I'm still going to do it. We'll go to measure 2 here, and I'm going to select this space, do Command-Shift-M. I'm going to create a MIDI note. We'll go all the way to the bottom here, C-2. Okay, just to be consistent with what we're doing, you know the drill, know what I'm going here. I'm going to change my MIDI to IAC Driver, and just to be consistent, I'm going to move it to channel 16. Okay, so I have 16 different options. So technically, I could use C-2 on channel 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way to 16, and that would be 16 different possible mappings. But you get the drill. Okay, now on this clip, I'm going to rename it Repeat so that I know what that is. And then if you had to guess, what are we going to map to? Okay, so I use this previous locator to jump back. What are we going to map to? You're very smart. Command-M, and you actually see I have this pre-mapped. If I was going to be a good citizen of the world, I would map my clip to match that, but ain't nobody got time for that for this tutorial. So I'm going to click this and I'm going to delete. And just for the sake of this, for now, I'm going to play this, and I'm going to click previous locator. And then as you would expect, as soon as I hit that, it's going to map to previous locator. Okay. So now let me show you what that does. I've got this track turned on. There's one other thing we need to do, but I want to show you what it does, and then I'll show you the last step. Let's play this section. So we'll go a little ahead of it. Okay. All right, so again, not a great spot to do this in, but I want you to get the context of what we're doing. I know we're going to loop in that section. So as opposed to continually hitting repeat and continually hitting previous locator, I want to pre-program that to happen, but I don't want it to happen continuously. I need a way to get out of that. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to do Command-K, and I'm going to delete R from what I did up here. So I'm going to delete that. I'm now going to map that to this repeat track, and I'm going to press R. Okay, so this is the track activator button on the repeat track, and I'm going to do Command-K, and now I'm going to start my song, or start this section. Okay, it's going to keep repeating. We'll let it run one more time because I'm sure you want to hear this awkward transition at least one more time. Okay, now I'm going to press R because we're done with this. We're ready to move on, and you'll notice that it keeps playing. The reason it keeps playing is I turn that track off. R is toggling my track activator on and off. So the beauty of that is when I press R, it turns off, press R, it turns back on, which is great. So what's really nice about this concept too, and I can, unlike that song clip, I can actually repeat this multiple places. So I can say, let's put this on the A section here, right? If I wanted to, let's play the A section. Okay, we're going to hit that repeat clip. It's turned on. Okay, I'm ready to go past it. So I hit R. And what's really nice about this, as opposed to using our previous locator, which is tied to global quantization, I can hit R anytime in the measure. So I just hit R now, which is going to turn this on, which means the next time we get to this section, we're going to repeat. So let's jump ahead. Okay, we'll skip ahead here. And it's going to repeat. I'll only let it repeat one time for the sake of your precious ears. Okay. Now I turn that off, and now we're going to move on. So what's really cool about that, again, this is all about doing the pre-work, making decisions beforehand so that when you step on stage, you have the most possible freedom and flexibility. You don't want to have to stress. You don't have to do a lot of work. So you get into that moment. The artist can talk as long as they want to. And then when you're ready to move on, you just hit R to move on. You may be watching this and going, but Will, why did you not just, like, you're kind of dumb. You could have just selected this, done Command L, and it would looped, and then Command L to turn that off. That's possible, but what I can't do in live currently is have multiple loop braces. Okay, and what I did there was just select amount of space, amount of time in my grid there, something like this. Oops, stop automating that wheel. There we go. And did Command L to turn on my loop brace, which is up here, and Command L to turn it off. That works great if you're only going to have one loop section per song, but maybe I want to do this for multiple sections of my song. Maybe I want to do it for the entire song. What I teach a lot of worship leaders to do is to add a repeat clip after every single section. So if they decide they want to repeat, then it will repeat, that particular section. But what's so nice about this is I can have multiple of those repeats during my song. I can pre-program a section to be a looping song section if I want to, which is great. And I can control all of it by pressing R, which is what I decided to map to on my keyboard, or I can press previous on my MIDI controller if I wanted to map this to a MIDI functionality as well too. But that's 3 advanced tips and tricks that you can pick up using the virtual MIDI bus, either doing a stop track, doing a pause and go to next track, which again is poorly named, or using a repeat track in your Ableton Live Set. And again, really, really simple to do, really easy to set up. I've got tons of links in the description of this video. If you want to dive a little deeper into IAC Driver or, whatever stuff related to what we talked about today. So make sure to check those out. But if you want a free template to get started with, the same template that I used to build this set, format my songs, then head to FromStudio2Stage.com/template. It's a free download. All you got to do is just add your name, your email there. You can download this template, and that's going to save you so much time. Please download it, because it's going to save you so much time when you're formatting songs, when you're building a set. And it's starting to open the door to all this cool freedom and flexibility stuff. Yes, we have advanced templates. We have other things you can purchase, but please start with the free template because it's going to get you headed in the right direction. It's going to make life so much easier. So again, head to FromStudio2Stage.com/template and keep watching, keep hanging out on the channel. And next week, same time, 10 a.m. Central, we'll have another tutorial related to using tracks where you can dive in and go even deeper. And as a reminder, we release a piece of content every single day, 10 a.m. Central. Each day has kind of a different theme. But if you want to see our next piece of content, tune in tomorrow, 10 a.m. Central. Head to the site. You can find content there as well, too. But thanks so much for watching, everybody. We'll see you next week, 10 a.m. Central on the next one. Take care. Bye.